Hello, everyone. I'm Derek Mazzarella with Gateway Financial Partners. I am here today with Melanie LeRoy. Very excited. She's from Win Enterprises. She's a business consultant. A little bit about Melanie. Melanie spent the early part of her career leading ticket sales and operations for pro and collegiate sports organizations, and then transitioned into a career in franchising and small businesses. She was the general manager for 2 locations of her family's retail shop, Relax the Back. I think I probably need that. Until she moved to a role with Edible Arrangements International, running their B2B sales team and their marketing consulting division. When Edible exited Connecticut, Melanie quickly rose to the top of the out-of-home marketing space with her ability to think outside the box, deliver on tight deadlines, and negotiate. At Win Enterprises, Melanie assists her clients with sales, marketing, revenue lead generation, and negotiation opportunities for the business, as well as just general business strategy. So very, very robust background. Melanie, thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. So we're going to be a little off our normal format today. Usually we just ask 3 questions, but I think Melanie's got a wealth of information. I want to make sure we tap into that today. So Melanie, let's just start with, tell us a little bit about what Win Enterprise does and how do you really help clients?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So Win Enterprise, we are a business consulting, a business strategy firm. So we're based out of Simsbury. We have a 4-person leadership team, and then we have a team of specialized consultants underneath us that we engage depending on the scope of the job. And so the company was born out of the need for internal process improvement. So operational process improvement, supply chain work, which right now has come full circle into another, heavy need in the world right now, financial health and process improvement, and then some work with things like leadership and culture and people. And so the 2 partners of the business, Pete and Dave, they both excel in working with, that internal processes. And then when I joined Win, as you mentioned, my area of expertise is more on the external side of the house. So looking at marketing and sales and pricing and negotiation strategies and all that fun stuff. And so together, I always feel like Captain Planet, well, when our powers combine, we can look at companies holistically. And that's our goal, is just to have open, honest conversations with businesses to see where they're at and how maybe we might be able to offer third-party unbiased opinions and help.
Yeah, and I think that's great, because I think you probably, at least what I've come across is you ask most business owners what their biggest challenge is, and they're all going to say, well, I just need more sales, as that is the cure-all to anything that ever happens in their business. But, businesses are very complicated. There are a lot of different systems and processes and, areas to it. So when you go into a company, how do you kind of assess, hey, this is what the business owner is good at, and this is how we can kind of help lift them up? Because usually business owners are good at, 1 or 2 areas, but not every aspect of a business.
Yeah, absolutely. Typically, if a business owner comes to us and asks for our help, they have an idea in mind of an area that they think needs either help or assessment or both. And so we always start there because they know their business best. And so whatever area of the business that is, we go in, we use sort of our own proprietary method. We call it discover, develop, deliver, right? We're not going to come in and just start spewing off knowledge. We got to get in there and see what we see. So we start with whatever area they believe they need the most help in, while also asking some probing questions about other areas of the business to see if there may be opportunity. And, once we've had a couple rounds of conversations and possibly even an in-person, depending on, COVID and the environment, then we say, okay, here's where we think that we could really help your organization. And that may be only a direct hit on what they originally thought they needed, or there may be other areas that we've now uncovered where we think perhaps we could help them.
So when you go in there, do you typically ever find kind of more of a consistent theme with, hey, most businesses are usually pretty good at this, but we typically find that they're lagging in this area? Is that usually a consistent theme with most businesses, or is it really scattershot depending on the business?
Little bit of both. So I think that I'll answer it this way. The larger the organization, right? So like historically, the first 10 to 15 years that Win was in business, we were only working with divisions of very large corporations, like, the 100 million to a couple billion. And so for those size entities, their operations, their processes are critical because they're usually can be complex. Yeah. And so what you find with the smaller, like the SMEs and the SMBs are, the smaller the company, usually the less complex their operations. But to your point earlier, the more they're relying so much on needing change in external sales, marketing, lead generation. And so that's a hard and fast rule. That's not always true, because there are, for example, in the state of Connecticut, there's tons of small manufacturers and they do still need help in things like supply chain and ops. But in a blanket statement, I'd say the bigger the company, the quicker we get into operational, supply chain, financial. And in the smaller the company, the more they may know they have that need, but they want to first talk about things a little bit more externally that bring in revenue first.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So, I mean, there's usually a lot of, common misconceptions in almost any industry. So what's kind of the biggest misconception that people have with business consultants, or at least specifically with you and your firm?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple misconceptions. I mean, the first one is, all business consultants are alike, right? Just like all financial advisors and wealth advisors are alike,
right?
So that's obvious. That's obviously a misnomer. I think the other biggest one, though, is that consultants and strategists, you need to have a high level of trust with, right? And so just like perhaps if a financial advisor has certain credentials, a CFE, or all the fun little acronyms that you guys have at the end of their names, people are looking for those from us. And it's kind of an opposite for business consultants, because there is no ordainment of a certified business coach, unless you're paying into a franchise or somewhere where you're sort of borrowing some of their data or knowledge base. And so for us, a point of differentiation is that we actually don't have any letters at the end of our names, because everything that we do is based on authentic leadership. And so what I mean by that is we are talking about only things that we have personally experienced and learned. And as Pete and Dave love to say, like, we've got the bumps and bruises to prove it. So we've seen it, we've done it, and now we're here to help you through it. But that there's no credential that provides that. And so you're really basing it off of trust. Whereas if you see somebody who calls themselves a business coach and they have a bunch of letters after their name, unless they were previously a financial person or a CPA, that would make sense. But if there's other acronyms, in my opinion, that doesn't give them more credit. It actually says, well, I'm working with a group and it's kind of shared knowledge. Right. And so helping people understand that part, you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. You're using essentially their system or protocols or stats, whatever.
Exactly. And we're ourselves, and that's it. And that's a lot, but it's not, there's no shared, to your point, like processes, or we didn't read a book or watch a tape and decide that we were business consultants. We're just teaching based off of what we know. And if we don't know something, we're the first person in the room to raise our hand and say, hey, I'm not the expert in the room on this. We like to try to have somebody, I know Derek is the expert in this area, but we will be the first people to say, hey man, that's just not an area in my core genius.
Gotcha. Core genius, like that. So how do you know, okay, I'm a business owner, and the challenge is it's, hey, this is my baby. And, I put my blood, sweat, and tears in this business. How do I know I need help, or how can I, admit that? So what's that action point?
That's definitely the hardest part. I mean, let's hit that part head on, because that is, I would say when we're going out to get, new business for ourselves, we're not so much fighting against, the pool of people who are looking at us versus other business consultants. It's the business owner deciding to make the plunge to bring somebody they ostensibly don't know into their business that is very near and dear to them, and that they've, to your point, have grown since inception. And so the way we like to approach it is that there's kind of these like key pivotal moments throughout a business's life cycle where you might feel like, you know what, this question that I don't know how to answer is too big to ignore or just like make up the answer. Right. So, and just to give a couple off the cuff examples of those moments, it could be, I woke up with a new idea. Is it a good one? Is it not a good one? Should I try it? Should I not try it?
Yeah.
Or, you wake up and something has happened, right? Unfortunately, we were working with a business owner who has a manufacturing plant, and he had a fire and it took down part of his line. And so it's like, what do I do? Right. You wake up to like kind of a, I don't want to swear on your podcast. So, OSHIT moment, and you're like, what do I do? Who can help me navigate this? Because now we're talking delays and supply chain and customer status and the whole kit and caboodle, right? So like, who can help me take a bite out of that? And then in a growth sort of side of things is, I think I want to merge, or I want to get acquired, or I want to acquire as part of my growth strategy. How do you do that? Where do I start? Do I call a bunch of businesses and see if they're interested in getting bought? Like, what do I do? Yeah. And then part of that as well, which is where you and I have talked a little bit too, is do I need to look for financing to get to where I need to be in the next level? And what does that look like? Is that an investor who takes equity in my company? Is that a debt solution? People are very scared about the word debt because you think credit card debt or, debt consolidation, but like, when is debt the right answer versus investment and vice versa? Or even somebody who's thinking, hey man, in 5 or 10 years, I want out of here. And what does that path look like from now till then, to make sure that when I sell or when I succeed the business, that it's how I want it to be, that it's left in good hands, that I get the money that I expected, all of those. So I'd say while we work with businesses on a ton of different topics, those are some of those moments that feel like too big to just do some guesswork.
Right. Yeah. You're not doing back of the envelope math. Oh, I think I could sell my company for X, or, hey, I'm just going to go build this new factory. Let me go take a loan at the bank without talking to anyone. Well, you did say something I want to kind of peel back into, because I do kind of run into this often enough as well when it comes to transitioning business out. And one of the things that I always try and tell clients is that you need to make yourself as little part of the business as possible if you're trying to sell it, because if the business can run without you, that's going to increase your value. Am I way off on that statement? Or, what are your thoughts on that?
No, that is so correct. I'm so glad to hear you say that. So, one of the biggest parts during a pivotal moment, especially when you're thinking about selling or succeeding the business in the future, is mitigating stress and mitigating or navigating risk. And so, like, for example, when we go to a business owner who says, hey, I woke up today and I decided I want out in 3 years, what do I do? The very first thing we do is evaluation exercise. What do you look like today to somebody who might come to you and offer you some money? And what is your risk profile? So to your point, the number one, riskiest part of a business is when the business owner is completely in it and not working on it. And, I'll just give a quick example. We worked with a small manufacturer, and, the ownership group, which was 2 people, was going through some health issues, and they decided, I want out in 3 years, and not out and then I stay on for a while, or out, I want to be done in 3 years. But he had no COO. And so he's the overseer of all operations. So he said, well, then before we do anything, we got to find you a COO, because if you're the day-to-day guy, no one's going to give you the correct multiple or, anything even close if they're going to lose you in the deal. Right. So you're so spot on with that sentiment. And it is, that's one of the toughest parts, especially in the smaller entities where they are in the business that, 24/7 essentially. So helping them to slowly delegate and or put people in place to mitigate that is exceptionally important.
Yeah, it almost seems backwards. It's like, hey, if you want to make your business more valuable, you have to be less valuable, which doesn't always make sense, right? So
that's right.
I think that's always an important point to go through, and that's glad we're kind of on the same page with that. So in terms of, I know your background's more marketing, so I don't know if you want to hit on that a little bit, but what's kind of some common themes that or some issues that you typically see with clients that are kind of pretty universal, I would say, across the board?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, Well, number one is sort of like the financial side. So again, like figuring out what is your financial strategy, right? Again, like going back to if you're going to grow, do you take on an investor or do you go get a debt product, and what does that look like? Mm-hmm. On the external side, right now, there's a lot. I think there's been a little, like a little cosmic shift in companies in like maybe the 1 to 10 million space or 1 to 20 million space, where they've never really had a sales team and they've never really needed a sales team. And these are mostly in the B2B sector, right? Yeah. So they've always just kind of worked their network. They have a certain level of clients that come back with some regularity. And so they've never needed a salesperson or a sales manager or anyone to really grab the reins of like a metrics driven sales process. And so all of a sudden we're hearing from a lot of business owners who are saying, if I want to grow, I think I need sales and new sales, right? So that is an area we've been helping with a tremendous amount of businesses with is, all right, well, what does that look like for you? So like, is that hiring a full-time, whatever, salesperson, VP, CRO, or, is this a good spot to plug in a fractional CRO or a fractional, VP of sales where they're helping you get to the next level because it's either too financially expensive or not appropriate yet for you to make that level of investment.
Yeah.
And we plug somebody in for like 1 or 2 days a week so they can help get you to that next level and raise your sales so that when your sales hit that next milestone, now you can go ahead and get that next full-time person if appropriate. So I think there's just a lot of companies, especially right now, that know they need that next level person under them. If they're the CEO, maybe there's no other C level, maybe there's no other VP level. They know they need another person, but they either need proof of concept or they need cost savings, or rather I should say a return on investment from the person before they just go and get a 6-figure somebody. And so that's where these fractional placements of CROs, CMOs, and even CFOs, it's a big one right now. There's a huge demand for fractional CFOs where they want a second set of eyeballs on what they're doing, but they're not quite ready for a full-time person.
Yeah, well, that's great. So in terms of the, this is probably the chicken and egg question with the marketing versus sales, and like, how do you guys figure out? I mean, I think the answer is almost always, a mix of the two. It's not one versus the other. Right. They should be talking, but what's the biggest challenge you see with organizations between using their marketing and their sales teams?
Yeah. So to your point, it really is like, there's this like grandiose question, is lead generation sales or is lead generation marketing? And the answer really is both, because it's just two different tactics, right? So sales to me, just to define it before I answer your question, sales to me is a person making relationships to make sales, right? To me, that's what sales is a body or bodies who are, and people always think about new leads, but what they forget about is mining through the people who know them. So like, where's your past client list and why did they leave and could you get them back? Your current clients, have you talked to them about the other products and services you offer and go deeper with the people who already know and love you? Right. And then, yes, you certainly do need to pepper in warm and cold leads as need be, but people go straight to the warm and cold leads, and you really want to do some mining in your people first. On the marketing side, however, you have, sort of demand generation and harvesting demand. So demand generation is, and that can fall on the sales side as well a little bit, is going out there and meeting people, or socially, social selling, right? So LinkedIn and some Instagram and sometimes Facebook is being a thought leader, providing value, showcasing who you are in a way that nobody has to sign on for your services or pay you anything, and just show that you're committed to sharing with everybody. And then when they need something like that, they know where to find you. That's kind of like the demand generation. Mm-hmm. And then the other prong of the marketing is harvesting demand. And so that's your digital strategy in terms of pay-per-click ads and Google display ads, where as opposed to saying, I'm a business consultant, you need me, and here's why.
Yeah.
You're on the internet and people are saying, I need help from a consultant, and you pay to come up in the ranks. And so both are equally an important strategy, but you have to do both, in my opinion. I don't think you could do just one.
In terms of the social piece of it, or are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, in my opinion, you need, the old rule of thumb, it takes 9 touches to learn about somebody or to make a decision. And now these days it's like 12 or 15. So like, the salesperson calls and leaves a voicemail, then they see an email from that person, then they're on your email blast list. Then they see you posted something on LinkedIn that was shared by the yada yada association who you know and trust. Right. And then you Google and you're like, do I need help with my business? And they come up as the number 1. And you're like, oh, I remember seeing them here, and here. Right, so it's like, it's a continuum, in the real world, somewhere between 96 and 99% of people you bump into don't need you right now. So you're not going to convince them that, you need me right now, but you're educating them as they may throughout their life cycle get closer to a time when they do need you or might need you or need help, but not sure how to get it. And then you're there as somebody they know and trust. And so that whole sales and marketing, you need it both, you need them both. Right. And so, yeah, people always because we do sometimes, very recently, we did a project for a company where we did a 12-week project and we deployed a fractional CMO and a fractional CRO, so marketing and revenue officers, in there interviewing on the calls, doing a deep dive, and came out with a report of what's working well, what's room for improvement, and if you were going to pick one or the two of us, which one would we choose? And so they came up with, you definitely need the CRO first right now. Yes, we could do some tweaks to your marketing, but you need the CRO to get your sales processes aligned and augmented. Yeah. And then we can talk about marketing. And so now they have this fractional CRO working in their company. So sometimes it really does take a project or a discovery where you're tag teaming sales and marketing at the same time to really dissect which one is the greater need first. And it varies business to business.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important point too, because I mean, are a lot of businesses now actually really tracking a lot of this stuff, or you kind of find that they're mostly haphazard with their marketing and their sales, and they're just they don't have things written down. There's no real process. There's no fact checking, A/B testing, any of that stuff.
Yeah. So again, I'll call it sub 20 million in top line revenue. Yeah, not a ton of great tracking, and that's a great place to start. Because the more knowledge you have, the smarter you can be and make data-driven decisions. So to your point, even ourselves, right? We send out sometimes 2 different emails or with 2 different subjects or, doing the light touch A/B testing because you have your hypotheses and then you have what the market tells you, and they might be the same and they might be different. And so the only way to know, to your point, is to A/B test. And from the tracking and the KPI side, I think people kind of think as long as I'm somewhat happy with my revenue, I don't need to track. I've got my 5 salespeople, this person's the rock star, these 2 are the middle, and then these 2 are we're trying to work on them, whatever. Yeah. And so they just kind of let that be. And as long as the revenue isn't in the toilet, they just kind of live like that. And it's only until they realize they want exponential growth or they're backed into a corner where they're like, what do we need to do? The answer is, we need to figure out what's going on with your sales team and what to, if one person is the rock star, how are you going to replicate that across the rest of the teammates? And do you have the right people on the bus? And that's also part of how we help companies is, are the butts in the right seats? So this guy's in marketing, this guy's in sales. Is that appropriate? Or should it be like this? And same thing for operations and so on and so forth. So sometimes helping companies dissect who on their team and what they're doing and what their true skill set is to make sure they're on the right part of the team.
Okay. So what's the process involved with that? Is that more of a personality kind of test, or is it, hey, we look at their skill set, or a combination of 2, or something way off?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, it's a combination. So it usually is in the form of some type of sort of workshop-esque. So it's some meeting with senior leaders. it's some one-on-one interviewing, and it's some working with some of these personality type tools to help us understand what is this person's strong suits and what do they lead with. And the thing about personality tests and things to that nature is they're really helpful insights, but they are just insights. And so they're only part of the puzzle. And so we're not going to go in there and say, like, take this test and we'll tell you if you're in the right position or not, right? You've got to have that one-on-one, and you've got to have sort of like, well, what do your senior leaders see? Because how you see yourself may not be how they see you. And sometimes that might just be, hey, everyone's in the right seats, but we need better communication, and here's how to do that. So it's a combination of sort of like that workshop feel plus some real one-on-one interview style work for sure.
Right, great. Well, so are there any other kind of tips that you want to give out to any of these, small, medium-sized businesses that you think would be really helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, first of all, don't go it alone, right? And so I know I come from a family of very strong-minded business owners. So like, I get it. It's your business. You probably know it better than anybody else. But if you have an idea or you want rapid growth or you're having trouble, suffering through it is probably not the right answer. And one thing that Win prides itself on is we try our hardest to draw a specific return on investment you can expect from working with us and specific deliverables. And I think that's where people get really tripped up in, what they would consider paying for advice. We're not going to ask you to pay us to just come in there and make these sort of overarching statements and then leave. Yeah. That's not helpful for anybody. And so, when you're looking for help, whether it's from, anybody, an executive coach, a financial advisor, a business strategist, whoever your people are, first of all, build that team, right? So like surround yourself, just like personally, you've got, your family, maybe your therapist, maybe whatever, a sports team, whatever you've got, right. And you kind of assemble your team of outside perspective folks that can lift you up as well. But then it is important to make sure you can tie as closely as possible a return on investment and or specific deliverables out of an engagement, because then that will tell you, is this worth the price of what I think I'm going to pay? Right.
Right.
And just remember that snags are normal. Like if business owning was easy, everybody would do it. Right. So bumps and bruises and snags and things that feel potentially catastrophic aren't always, and usually actually aren't, but they feel that way because it's the first time you've gone through it. And so, it's okay to reach out for help. You know what I mean? I think that's like a thematic in the world right now anyways, right? And being as authentic about it as possible. And then the other thing is back to the financial side is, don't be afraid of debt if you do it the right way. And certainly don't go it alone, right? But right now in the world, there are ways to obtain, capital that can either help save a tough situation or escalate a really good situation. And it's worth asking the question. So I implore people to do their research on, if they think that a capital injection could be helpful. And also, just because you walk into a bank and they say no, that doesn't mean it's the end of the story for you, right? So there are other people, again, financial advisors, CPAs, business strategists who have lines into capital who can help you. So don't be discouraged. That would be the other piece in general, but especially on the financial side is if you're having a tough time or you go somewhere and you finally get the courage to ask and you get a no, you got to keep marching on. Don't let one no, stop you dead in your tracks, whatever the subject matter is.
Yeah. If you go through your whole business, life and you never have a setback, you're probably not pushing yourself enough, but
That's right. That's right. So it's, and listen, I mean, these are people's livelihoods, right? So we don't take it lightly, but it is worth having a conversation with a trusted advisor or whoever it is that you trust in your world to be able to figure out, am I doing it right? Is there something we could be doing better? And, how can I make my business, as healthy and profitable as possible? Because that's what people are in business for, right?
Right. Absolutely. So. And, I love your point on the debt too. I think, we hear from all these different sources, how you have to do this, pay down your debt as soon as possible. Debt's bad. It's an anchor. But when you do it correctly, it can really be a huge leverage tool to help you grow your business. And, I think you just need to be careful about how you're doing it, what the rates are,
Absolutely.
and have a plan behind it, right? When you don't have a plan
Yeah.
behind the debt and you just say, hey, look, I need
Yeah.
extra $50,000 for my business, and you don't know exactly how to deploy that, then it's a bad idea. So
Absolutely.
that's a great point.
Absolutely. No, I
Melanie, is there
absolutely agree.
anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. This has
No?
been, great chatting with you. I just, I'm really, I'm glad that you reached out and offered for us to do this chat, because hopefully, from what I hear, there's a lot of businesses out there, especially in the state of Connecticut and in New England, that could use, a little lending hand these days. And so the more we let people know that we're here and authentic and want to help, honestly and truly want to help, we're here for whatever they might need help with. And if we can't, we'll tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Melanie, it was a pleasure having you on. One last thing, where can people find more information about you in case they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, great. So we have actually just very recently updated our website, and we would, any feedback is totally open, but our website is winenterprisesllc.com. And then Win Enterprises, we also have, Instagram and LinkedIn and all those good social pages too.
Gotcha. Awesome.
The one other thing I will throw out there, and Derek, we'll have to have you on there at some point, is we also do have a podcast, businessresultsradio.com. And we just interviewed Colin Cooper, who is the head of manufacturing for the state of Connecticut. So if anybody is in the manufacturing sector, especially in the state of Connecticut, or even if not, that might be a great podcast to listen in on.
Oh, that's awesome. Great. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, Melanie, well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.